Hello, um, welcome to today's podcast. Here to discuss a matter I talked about a little while back in regard to Uganda's move to go cashless. The actual title was Uganda to go cashless, what the far-reaching implications are. That's what I called it. I think that was about in April. But while I discussed at length in about 16 minutes what the far-reaching implications of this global move, I didn't know actually how far Uganda had gone down this road. The article that I picked off the NTV website read central bank shifts to digital currencies to cut costs. The central bank has announced a shift from physical currencies to digital money to reduce the costs associated with printing. According to the deputy governor of the Bank of Uganda, Augustus Nwagaba, millions of notes are destroyed daily due to poor handling in circulation. Nwagaba speaking to accountants gathered in Entebbe attending the third annual Public Finance Management Conference. So, given the event at which the deputy governor made this statement that about going cashless, I did not give it perhaps due weight. So I knew if I tackled it because of the bad implications of the evil nature of this move. That's why I tackled it. But again, I thought these were side notes. These were side notes of a man who was perhaps talking about something else, but the side notes were picked as the major news. So then, even in my when I was addressing them, I didn't address the matter as if we had gotten too far about it. So I addressed it, yes, but in a manner that perhaps are like, okay, if we are to go down this road, these are the implications. And some of the implications I noted that this was not a local move, it was a global move, and that it was led by a global associations, global, I want to call them a global cartel, whose only goal is to control the world as much as they can. They cite different reasons for different countries. They can cite fighting terrorism. They can say they want to stop money laundering. They can talk about the cost of printing money. But at the end of the day, what they're saying that they are going cashless. Okay, even they say that this measure has been born out of a concern. They mentioned so many concerns why we need to go this road, but it's a highly dictatorial move, a very very intricate move that had been woven, that had been built over decades. Okay, so I tackled a bit about it in that podcast earlier on, but knowing or thinking that Uganda hadn't yet moved, given the event at which the deputy governor mentioned or spoke about it. But I was so astounded to find that while I was going through YouTube to find that actually Uganda had moved several steps ahead, further than I thought had moved. I found a video titled on YouTube, Stakeholder Consultations on Central Bank Digital Currencies. This was posted on YouTube on March 4th, 2005 and took place at Serena Hotel. So I was so shocked. I'm like, we've already had a workshop in regard to this move. I thought we hadn't moved that much or moved at all. I thought these were, what was mentioned in Entebbe at the third annual Public Finance Management Conference. I thought those were side notes of, of the deputy governor. It wasn't the main point of this discussion. But I was shocked that actually a workshop was held, and that workshop that was held was discussing research findings findings from a research that was commissioned last year in 2024 in June. So the findings were what were being discussed by various stakeholders. So you see that that shocked me a lot, that after we've embarked on this journey this seriously, that the Bank of Uganda is organizing such workshops involving stakeholders. There's the consultations, but we shall tackle that later. I want to just share a bit of what was discussed in that workshop, and it's there on YouTube. I'll share the link. Or you can go and Google it. The title is Stakeholder Consultations on Central Bank Digital Currencies. It's on the Bank of Uganda YouTube channel. So as just a bit of the findings, or a bit of the things that were discussed. One the workshop was discussing findings of the Bureau consultation on the potential issuance of CBDC. There is a potential, but this is not potential. Like I said, they are discussing a consultation paper sent out by BOE in regard to issuance of CBDCs. The questionnaire was sent in June 2024. It targeted 250 stakeholders. They got 151 respondents. That's 60% response rate. So we can say it gives a bit of an indication of where they want to. The research is a bit, commendable. Or and then they got 96% respondents were based in Uganda, 4% responses from the Central Bank of Kenya, Armenia, Egypt, Sri Lanka, and Tanzania. So that constitutes the people that were involved in this. All the research reached out to. And then the findings, 45% respondents said that the infrastructure in Uganda was inadequate. So that means that 55% were okay with the infrastructure that we have, that it's okay for us to start the journey of issuing CBDCs, central bank digital currencies in Uganda. Some of the benefits mentioned that it reduces currency-related costs and the other issues. When you say currency-related costs, that's the cost of printing the money, but also it reduces the other issues of which you put, right? So in your case, they may say to you as, you know what, all this counterfeit nonsense, what that will be gone with digital, with the digital currency. That it fosters innovation in payment systems. We already have innovations, mobile money in the fintechs that are around, but this will also take it further. The visas, the MasterCards, etc. And then also enhances cross-border payment processes. So that's what they say in terms of benefits. In terms of challenges, they talked about cybersecurity, they talked about operational risks, financial stability, and then the impact. Most of them agreed that the impact was going to be very good. 88.1% of the respondents said it was going to have a positive impact. Those who said that it wasn't going to have a positive impact were 9.9%. The precondition, they said these are the conditions we need to set in place that have to be in place before we even consider issuing, before BOE considers issuing CBDCs. Supporting the ecosystem. Ecosystem, that is the system that is around. How are you going to support it to bring in the digital currencies, especially the legal framework and the legal and regulatory framework? Do you have the appropriate technology to support it? That they also need a lot of stakeholder engagements, like this workshop they were having. The principles to consider, that's innovations and efficiency, coexistence, especially came in strongly with the current ecosystem. Because when CBDCs come through digital currencies, someone will have to wonder that then what does that, where does that leave commercial banks? Where does that leave mobile money? Okay, and perhaps that I should have started here that what these digital currencies is that today we have notes. Most of the time we use notes, bank notes, but now instead of bank notes you have digital money. That's what they call it. So it won't be tangible. It will be like the way you operate your mobile money. You never touch it, but you can transact. You can send someone 10K, but it's not a physical note, and they can use it to do something worth 10K, or even if it's a million, you can send it to someone. So the million can move from one person to another without anyone, holding the note. So that's the kind of currency they want to bring. Those are CBDCs in a layman's language. So digital currencies, that you have these currencies, not notes, but it's virtual, but you have it. They can credit you, like someone can credit your MTN or Airtel money, account. Like someone can credit your bank account from these online transactions without exactly you touching the note. Okay, so that's how they are going to be. That's how the digital currency is going to be, and the digital currency is going to be issued by the central bank, non-commercial banks, not any other player. That's why they call it central bank digital currencies. They are announced to issue it, they are announced to centrally manage it and back it. So we shall get into more on that. So they say principles to consider coexistence with the current ecosystem. So now you see why coexistence with the current ecosystem becomes a big issue, that if the Bank of Uganda is involved in digital money, where does that leave other players? Where does that leave commercial banks? If the Bank of Uganda is issuing out the money, where does that leave mobile money systems, etc.? And the other principle to consider is that we shouldn't do any harm to the existing players like commercial banks and the fintechs. And the other bits they gave us in terms of retail was preferred over wholesale. Now, these CBDCs or the digital currencies are also going to be given out. There is a retail side and the wholesale. Retail is where they give tokens to individual people. Like they can give me a number of, digital currencies to do my own retail. Like, retail buying one on one, where I can go and I buy my shirt, buy my shoes, and then there's a wholesale which can be sold to maybe commercial banks or institutions like maybe NSSF when it wants to engage in bigger business. That's wholesale. They're buying in bulk. They need the digital currencies in bulk. So they were like, where should we start? Most of the respondents opted for retail. That's 60.3%. So there's a strong support for programmable CBDC functionality. Programmable CBDC functionality. So many people wanted this money to be programmed. We shall talk about that later. What it means to program this digital currency. 65.6% agreed that it should be programmed. 19.9% disagreed. Okay. So, and in terms of trust, 83.45 agreed that they trust the system. 12.6% don't trust the system or digital currencies. So, finally, in terms of a global outlook, that was also presented that by May 2024, 134 countries representing 98% of the global GDP were already down this road, exploring the use of central bank digital currencies. 66 countries were already in advanced phases, or developing digital currencies. They're already in the pilot and some ready to launch. Every G20 country is exploring CBDCs. The G20 are the Great 20, and with 19 of these G20 already in advanced stages. All the original BRICS countries are also exploring CBDCs. The BRICS, that's the block of Brazil, Russia, India, and China. They are also already exploring this. And so that means that in terms of our global outlook, the world is already moving. Okay, and like I said in my earlier commentary about this, about Uganda going cashless, I mentioned that this was not a local move, this is a global move. Okay, and then they mentioned here countries like Nigeria, Jamaica, and China that already launched their own digital currencies. Bahamas, Bahamas for them, they launched it, to enhance their transport. It is in Nigeria, it was mainly the selling point there was to fight fraud. China, of course, those were the forerunners, the biggest now with this digital currencies. So, in essence, from the research, the general takeout is that all these respondents that we looked at in the over 60% that responded agreed, generally speaking, they agreed that we should move forward with the central bank digital currencies. So while we may be here talking about consultation, this and that, the move is already on, and the move is already on, and I think there seems to be nothing likely to stop the phases that we are going to go into. So from the research, that is pretty clear that while, and perhaps here I should put a disclaimer that in terms of these global moves, especially the ones that are not orchestrated by us here, why they may talk about consultations, really that's to give you a sense that we also have an input in this global move that is being orchestrated. Yet in actuality we don't. That's why you see that even when they do this research, the general, takeout is that we should move forward, that the infrastructure is good, that the legal framework is good, that yes, there's a bit of dissent here and there, but generally the takeout is that we are ready, we should start our journey to exploring digital currencies by the central bank. And perhaps how this, again, we shall delve into certain of these things as we go ahead, but how these digital currencies issued by the central bank differ from the likes of Bitcoin is because the ones that are issued by the central bank, again, are backed by the central bank. The other ones are individually issued, okay? And they are decentralized. Okay, anyone who sits wherever they are, they may start their own digital currency, but these ones are started by the central bank, issued by the central bank, backed by the central bank. It is, and we shall see later how they use that as a selling point to trust them and not perhaps the other, like the bitcoins of this world, and the other cryptos. So in essence, the man of the discussion was as if, we had no choice whether or not to adopt CBDCs, but rather were moving forward. Though they vehemently and consistently were saying, no, we haven't yet started, we haven't yet started, we haven't yet started. But as we go on, I will show you that actually even the consultation meetings that we are having are merely um, I should say rubber stamping moves to show that we are also involved in this. But actually we are not. These are global moves that are done and orchestrated by the people that call the shots globally. I'll pause here a bit and I'll let you listen to Dr. Michael at Ego, the governor of Bank of Uganda, to listen to his remarks during this workshop. And then we shall go through them, dissect what he actually presented. It was a 2-hour workshop. It's on YouTube, but I clipped out his remarks. They generally captured the mood and the flow of the discussion, and we shall see what he said and the implication therein.
Very good morning to all of you, and I'm really very pleased to welcome you to this very important workshop. A workshop where we gather to discuss, like Titi has mentioned, the findings of the Bank of Uganda consultation on the potential issuance of the central bank digital currency. So we see this workshop as representing a very critical step in our ongoing efforts to explore how emerging financial technologies can support Uganda's economic development and enhance the efficiency of our payment systems. Now, the BOU initiated this consultation to assess the readiness, the implications, and the potential benefits of introducing a CBDC. Like you'll hear, the findings of this survey is based on about 151 responses from various stakeholders. And it did provide us with some very valuable insights into the opportunities and the challenges associated with this innovation. So like Titi has mentioned, today we are going to provide these findings, not as something, as a definitive conclusion, but as a starting point for deeper consideration and further feedback from all the stakeholders. And if you look at today, around the world, that's globally, the financial landscape is undergoing a significant transformation. As of May 2024, there were about 134 countries, representing over 98% of the global GDP, which are either exploring or piloting CBDCs. 7 economies, including Nigeria, Jamaica, and China, have already launched their own digital currencies. These developments reflect a broader trend towards digitalization in the financial sector, driven by technological advances and a changing consumer preferences. Of course, in Uganda, we're witnessing significant shift toward digital payments, with mobile money emerging as a cornerstone of our financial ecosystem. The numbers in terms of the customers, in terms of the accounts related to mobile money, reflects a widespread adoption nationwide. The value of the transactions are far much greater than the GDP of the country. The value of the transactions is about 253 trillion shillings in 23-24, compared to a GDP of about 190 trillion, which is really highlighting the increasing reliance on the digital payment solution. Now, of course, this growth has contributed to a rise in access of the formal financial services, with about 65% of the adult population now having access to the banking services, up from 58% in 2022. These developments do demonstrate a transformative potential of digital financial systems in enhancing financial inclusion and driving economic activity. Now, just mention briefly that the Bank of Uganda has played a role in promoting efficient payment systems. If you look at what's happened to real-time gross settlements, we've seen a significant increase in that. Electronic fund transfers have also increased. The regional integration systems, for example, the COMESA regional payment system and also the East African payment systems have also increased, including international transactions. For example, commercial banks process an estimated 53 trillion shillings in outward transactions via SWIFT, while remittances inflows reached about $914 million in 2024. Now, of course, beyond this, the Bank of Uganda has implemented strategic initiatives to foster innovation through the regulatory sandbox. It has expanded on financial literacy programs to enhance digital literacy. It has also begun ongoing study on blockchain technology to explore its integration into the financial sector. So we see these achievements as collectively positioning Uganda as a key player in the payment system, innovation across the region, while creating a more inclusive, innovative, and a globally connected ecosystem. So, the consultation on CBDCs is a natural extension of these efforts. The survey findings reveal a range of perspectives on the potential benefits and risks of the CBDC. And it's of course important to note that this approach shows a balanced findings in terms of the perspectives regarding CBDC. CBDC is not a magic bullet. It has its own risks. Its introduction would require a careful consideration of legal, regulatory, and technological frameworks needed to ensure it is safe and efficient. It will also require a thorough assessment of the potential impact on the existing financial ecosystem, including mobile money, commercial banks, and other payment systems providers. So, on the path forward, as we move forward, the Bank of Uganda will remain committed to a phased, cautious, risk-based approach to the development of the CBDC. This approach will be guided by the principle that any decision to issue a CBDC must be based on a thorough understanding of its potential benefits and risks, as well as the readiness of the Uganda financial ecosystem to support it. So we see today's workshop as an opportunity for us to engage in a constructive dialogue on these issues. Your feedback and insights will be invaluable in shaping the Bank of Uganda's future stance on CBDCs. With the survey results in mind, we encourage you to consider some questions such as, what are the potential benefits and risks of the CBDC in the context of Uganda? How can a CBDC complement existing payment systems such as mobile money and retail and card payments? What measures should be taken to mitigate the risks associated with the CBDC, particularly in terms of cybersecurity, financial stability, and privacy? How can we ensure that the CBDC, if introduced, is inclusive and accessible to all Ugandans, including those in the rural and the underserved areas? So in conclusion, introducing a CBDC is a complex and a multifaceted issue that requires thoughtful consideration and collaboration among all concerned stakeholders. The BOE is committed to fostering an open and inclusive dialogue on this topic, and we look forward to your contributions to this important discussion. So I urge you to use this workshop as an opportunity to explore the potential of a CBDC in an objective manner, focusing on how these CBDCs can support Uganda's broader goals of financial inclusion, economic growth, and payment system efficiency. I want to thank you for your very kind attention, and I wish you a productive and insightful deliberation. God bless.
So from his remarks, he talked about, to assess our readiness, the implications of the CBDCs and the potential benefits. We are going to go through what he said, a bit of it, and my personal takeouts. That when someone talks about our readiness, especially when they talk about the legal framework, that already we have the Data Protection, Act, and so we shouldn't worry about our privacy when someone is in the know of all our transactions, digitally speaking, that we shouldn't, when it talks about our readiness there, are we really ready for this? Do you have the technology? Then it talks about the implications, then it talks about the potential benefits. But for me, those three bullets, when it discusses our readiness, implications, and potential benefits, that's a discussion, I should say, on the shallow end of the implications of CBDCs. These discussions, if you discuss readiness, implications, and potential benefits, and perhaps you throw it even in a bit of the challenges, you've not even scratched the surface of the far-reaching implications of the introduction of the central bank digital currencies. But we shall get into that later. Then he talks about that, this not conclusive, that they're on the starting. These are just a starting phases, consulting, as stakeholders, they need your input, etc. etc. We know this is the language that is usually used when introducing certain of these things, that they don't want to show that they have moved ahead without your input. Yet, in spite of your input, the global move is that we have to move forward, and they have started on that journey with or without your inputs. And then the other thing, it paints a global picture of how other guys have gone ahead, like the report I mentioned, the likes of China, Bahamas, Nigeria, the BRICS, and the G20s of this world, etc. That is meant to, give you a bit of an assurance that we are not walking into a blind alley. There are people that have paved the way. We are not the forerunners. Therefore, at least we have the benefit of learning from their mistakes and correct correct course before we go too far. So that is meant to give you a bit of to keep you calm. And then they cite the success of mobile money as an indicator of the increasing reliance on digital payment solutions and the transformative nature and potential of digital payment systems. Of course, whenever they throw in mobile money, the implication there is that digital currencies issued by the central bank are a continuation of a journey we've already started. So there's no need for you to worry that this something very new. Yet fundamentally in terms of operation, it's really new. But we shall again tackle that later. Then they talk about efforts towards an inclusive, innovative, and globally connected ecosystem. That is very, very, very huge. When it talks about that, we have to, be or is undertaking all these efforts. When he mentions globally connected ecosystem, that again you'll hear from the head of the IMF herself, who wants to have all these digital currencies, individual central bank digital currencies, because if every country issues or goes down this line, she mentioned, later on you'll see herself mentioning it, that they want it centrally connected and controlled. That means there will be we shall be giving up the control of our individual cryptocurrencies. Anyway, as we go ahead, it's not even an idea. It's an idea. It's a top-down idea from that global cartelization I referred to that wants to control everything in this world. And then, of course, they reveal potential benefits and risks But again, when they review potential benefits and risks, they are not showing you the actual risks. We are going to explore them here. Here, the risks they are talking about is perhaps your privacy, how and then they talk about a bit of the ecosystem here that we have. How won't it destabilize mobile money and commercial banks? What about the legal framework? Is it enough? Really, do we have the technological know-how? What about our mothers or relatives in the villages? How will they be able to transact? So you find that the discussion is, like I said already, is on the shallow end of things. But we are going to go at the deep end of things. Um, and then it talks about CBDC is not a magic bullet. That's right. It requires careful consideration of legal, regulatory, technological framework needed to ensure it is safe and efficient. Through assessment on potential impact um, on the existing financial ecosystem, yes, that we need to assess thorough assessment of the potential impact on the existing financial ecosystem, like the mobile money ecosystem and other payment systems. You see that again, when he mentioned assessment on this, when he mentioned the implications, he is shaping or framing the parameters of the discussion. That when you go into the media, they will be discussing these very things that he mentioned. And you'll find it that the media would also be discussing what's the potential impact of the central bank digital currency on mobile money, on on commercial banks. Again, the narrative is shaped and controlled and steered within a certain direction. That's where the discussions will be. But today we are going to take a discussion in a certain opposite end, and you see the actual intentions of central bank digital currencies from the architects, perhaps above our Bank of Uganda here. And again, it's also again when you say that BOE remains committed to a phased conscious approach to the development of the CBDC, as phased conscious approach. Again, this it gives the implication that we are moving forward. Yes, in a phased manner. Yes, we are conscious about it, but we are moving forward. And then he said today, with the survey results in mind, we should consider questions such as the potential benefit and risks of CBDCs. How can CBDCs complement existing measures to be taken to mitigate the risks, especially in terms of cybersecurity? How can we ensure it's inclusive and accessible to all Ugandans? You see that the things he's talking about here that we need to have in mind are the very things that are going to be discussed in the media, on talk shows by everyone. In here, this is tactfully done that we shall be discussing these matters and the narrative will be set there. But the far-reaching implications of this are not at all mentioned here. And we are going to see them today. So while I was still shocked at that time, workshop by BOU that I found on YouTube, I was further shocked when I saw again a Daily Monitor article on May 27th, that was a Tuesday, which entitled Uganda's Digital Shilling, a safe bet or digital gamble. So it comes off as if it's going to be really, really very, very deep analytical, but it was, I think, an article about that very workshop. And again, when I talk about shaping the narrative, this is how it was shaped. When you look at what was written here, it talks about very, very, very good beginning. Uganda is eyeing the future of money. The Bank of Uganda is exploring the central bank digital currency, a tech-savvy upgrade of the shilling. Tech-savvy upgrade of the shilling as part of the global rethink of currency in the digital era. At least we agree it's a global move, not an individual move. But forget Bitcoin, roller coaster, or meme coin mayhem. The CBDC is crypto's serious cousin, state-backed, stable, and legal tender. So you see already here that they're already showing you the advantages of these central bank digital currencies over the cryptocurrencies. That these ones are backed by the state. They are backed by the state. They are not backed by individuals. You know, when a coin is backed by an individual or a company, that company can fold. But when it's backed by the state, I mean, the state is not going to fold. It's going to be here. However, whatever may happen, the state is going to stay. So they are showing you this backed by the state, is stable, and is a legal tender. Again, we note that in some parts of the world, our crypto is not legal tender. But this is going to be legal tender. You can use it. You can, quote unquote, take it to the bank. And then the article goes in here to talk about the legal muscle or mayhem, whether we have adequate legal and regulatory framework for this. I talk, can Uganda legally pull off CBDCs? They quote the lady that was on the panel during the workshop. Absolutely, says Alice Namuri, partner and head of tech at Katende Simple Advocates. There is often pressure to create more laws, she notes, but Uganda already has the legal foundation. The real challenge, enforcement and smart regulation. So she says, oh, the article here, again, following the narrative, the parameters that were shaped. I told you that the media is going to discuss this as per this framing of the narrative that was given. Let's look at whether we are ready. Let's look at the infrastructure. Let's look at the ecosystem. When I talk about infrastructure, I mean the tech infrastructure. Okay. But again, from here, she adds that at the core of this article, at the core of this foundation is the Data Protection and Privacy Act, critical for any digital currency. So they are even saying that we are ready. At least legally speaking, we're not starting from zero. We already have something already in place, the Data Protection and Privacy Act. The article goes on to talk about to define retail. CBDC is essentially digital cash for the public, usable for everyday things such as groceries or rent, much like mobile money, but backed by central bank. Mobile money is backed by MTN. MTN can fold, but your social and central bank can. So it's more stable. They say it's more stable, it's more secure. And then on the flip side, wholesale CBDCs for banks and big financial players making large transactions faster and more secure. So as per these very areas that the governor left us to discuss, the article is following that script. Potential benefits and risks. How can CBDCs complement payment systems here? Measures to be taken to mitigate the risks. How can we ensure it's inclusive and accessible? Those are the areas the governor left us, and the media is picking up right at that spot to continue the discussion as per as per the script that was handed down. So you find that the media won't discuss anything outside of that parameter. So again, the article goes on, will it work for the average Ugandan? Most Ugandans, and this is my biggest worry, that most Ugandans are not pouring over CBDC white papers or diving into blockchain lingo during their tea breaks. What matters to them is simple. Does it work? Can I use it? Does it make my life easier? Now that's one of my biggest concerns, that because of the lingo involved here, the language and the jargon, and generally speaking, people's attitude towards economic news or economic terms, that much of this may fly over so many people's heads. Because I mean, even the mere acronym, what CBDCs, the mere mention of CBDCs, you understand? Someone, what's that? The thing is not as simple as UN or IMF or perhaps you're used to those. Digital currencies, even right now when you mention crypto, um, so many people, even quote unquote corporates, don't know these things or they have ignored them. They're running their lives aside, using their cash and mobile money systems that they're used to. And for me, that's my biggest worry, that the lingo used in here will get much of this news, all of this evil project, of this evil agenda fly over people's heads, and they'll just wake up one day when it's in their face and have been launched and ready to roll out. And they won't know even the far reaching implications because of this very paragraph here, that most Ugandans are not poring over CBDC white paper or diving into blockchain lingo during their tea breaks. And this is very right. What matters to them is simple. Does it work? Can I use it? Does it make my life easier or harder? Now, those questions, important as they are, they don't even begin to scratch the surface of how bad this agenda is. But again, like I've been reiterating, we are going to go deeper than that. Yet, while as I'm looking at that article on Tuesday, May 22nd, 2025, this very year, again, I should find that actually, I kept getting shocked, perhaps because of where I started from, that I didn't think that all I didn't know that Uganda had made any steps or moves in this very direction. I found another article by Debunking again. This was on Sunday, December 22nd, 2024. The headline, Inside Central Bank's Digital Currency Plan. What? They were discussing their plans. Okay. Just a few paragraphs here. Imagine paying for groceries or sending money across the country in seconds without middlemen or hefty fees. What? Wow, that sounds very nice. I mean, imagine that. This is the promise of central bank digital currencies, a digital revolution brewing in Uganda's financial space. So they're already selling it as this revolutionary move. What? Imagine in seconds, no middleman. What? You just send and it's their side. I don't know, but and then the digital currency world is moving at the breakneck speed, and it's no longer just about Bitcoin. Well, Bitcoin and its crypto cousins opened the floodgates. Their wild volatility and regulatory headaches make them unsuitable for mainstream finance. Just ask Uganda why Bitcoin is far from legal tender. So again here, while they are selling us the advantages of the central bank digital currencies, that for them, at least they're backed by central bank, and there will be a legal tender. You'll be sure they'll be stable. There'll be everything. I mean that the state can guarantee. But again, this again to further show us how the narrative is already being shaped in favor of issuance of a central bank digital currency in Uganda. I mentioned earlier on the implications of this. Earlier on when I talked about the cashless, I mentioned the implications of going cashless. But yet, even in their language here, they're like, no. They'll be operating side by side. You can decide to use your cash or you can decide to use your digital currency. But we shall see that that too is a lie. Let's also look at what other global leaders who have talked about central bank digital currencies have said about them. There have been all sorts of, praises heaped upon these digital currencies. And let's have a look at some of them and we shall analyze what they say. Let's start with Rishi Sunak, the former UK Prime Minister. But this particular clip was uploaded on YouTube on November 1st, 2021, when he was the government chief finance minister. And this is what he had to say about the central bank digital currencies.
Today, I'm proud to say that under the UK's presidency, the group of the world's 7 most advanced economies, the G7, is launching a set of public policy principles for retail central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. Central bank digital currencies could be a digital version of money, a bit like a digital banknote that could be used alongside physical notes and coins. Unlike most of the digital money people use daily today, it would be issued directly by a central bank, like the Bank of England in the UK. And governments and central banks across the world are working together looking into what having a digital currency might mean in practice. This includes issues that people care about, such as ensuring users' money would be safe and secure, that it could work with other ways to pay, would be energy efficient and available to everyone. A potential CBDC could offer businesses and consumers new ways to pay in the future. It's all part of the wider story of digital innovation that has delivered benefits to millions around the world and in the UK. The decision on whether to launch a central bank digital currency is for each country to make, and no G7 jurisdiction has yet made that choice. These decisions raise important questions about the reshaping of our economy, financial systems, and the way in which people interact with money and payments. That's why working together and careful evaluation with our international partners is essential. In the UK, earlier this year, I announced a new joint task force between the Treasury and the Bank of England to look into a potential CBDC as a complement to cash and bank deposits. We're also hearing from firms, technology experts and others. Under the leadership of the UK, this report today will help support and inform exploration of CBDCs in the G7 and beyond. With these principles, the G7 is leading an important step change in the global policy conversation. The report covers a range of important matters, such as financial stability, cyber resilience, energy efficiency, privacy, inclusion, and tackling illicit finance. These factors should all be considered when designing and potentially delivering a CBDC that would be fit for the future. Our shared objective is to ensure that CBDCs will be grounded in long-standing commitments to transparency, the rule of law, and sound economic governance. The G7 will continue its work in this important area, working with others to enhance understanding and use of these principles. We're excited to be taking a leading role with G7 members in publishing this exploratory work, bringing money and finance into the 21st century.
Well, that's what I had to say about the CBDCs. But we shall just pick a few notes here. It talks about this digital version of money. Instead of it's like the digital banknote that could be used alongside physical notes and coins. Please note that we shall need it going forward. That we said the digital currencies will be used alongside the physical notes and currencies, and say that governments and central banks around the world are working together, so they are not working independently. Okay, that's what also our own Bank of Uganda talked about, a global connected ecosystem. So all central banks in the world are working hand in hand to ensure that they have central banks digital currencies. Again, ensuring that the money will be safe and secure. Those buzzwords compatible with other payment systems. That's what we talked about here. For in our case, mobile money and commercial banks. But you mentioned something that was a bit a bit shocking. That also you need to ensure that the money, the digital money, will be energy efficient. Energy efficient. What does it exactly mean? Energy efficient. How do you make money energy efficient? If I've made my money and I have my digital currency. How do you make it digital and energy efficient? We shall see it perhaps what it means later on. And then it talks about that part of the wider story of digital innovation that has delivered benefits around the world. Again, you also continue the narrative that this is not something new. This is a journey that we have already started. It's just a continuation. He also talks about the decision to adopt CBDCs is for each country to make. Now that is a lie. He has said governments and central banks around the world are working together, and says it's for individual governments to make. That's a lie. Just like these entities did with lockdowns, every country, all their citizens had the illusion of that their president or leader was making individual decisions based for that particular country. You get. Yet, at least now in hindsight, we know these were top-down orders from forces above that all these countries had to implement these lockdowns, curfews, etc., and everything that they did. This is the same thing that's going to happen with central bank digital currencies. They are no country is going. They will not want any country to make its individual choice on this. And it mentions, it drops there a word that should be should get so many people worried if they paid attention. It talks about resetting our financial systems. Remember the Great Reset, mainly championed by World Economic Forum former leader Klaus Schwab, how they intended to reset the world. Now they're talking about resetting our financial systems. One of the biggest premises or promises of the Great Reset was that we will own nothing and still be happy. That's their entire goal. So this financial, revolution, like they call it, or digital currencies, are another measure towards achieving that goal, towards achieving the global reset. But this is financial. There's perhaps the health and whatever, but they're all geared towards a world where you will own nothing but still be happy. How will they do it? Let's continue and see other clips. I don't want, like I usually say, I don't want you to believe me. I just bring you content I have, seen here and there, so that you too can make your own decision. But this is how I see where they're getting. Then it talks about that this will be grounded in long-standing commitments to transparent rule of law and sound economic governance. These people talk so much about the law, the law, yet they are the foremost, culprits when it comes to floating the laws. We saw them during the pandemic. They never paid any heed to any laws. You get even laws concerning your own body and what you should put in your own body. They wanted to overrule you on that. And now these are people that want to tell us that when it comes to these CBDCs, that there will be, this tremendous rule of law, that they will be, they'll subject themselves under it. That's a lie. Let's also look at Christine Lagarde, the president of the European Central Bank, what she has said about central bank digital currencies.
The digital euro is on the move. Yesterday, the Governing Council of the ECB approved the opening of the preparation phase. It will be a journey, and we will walk the journey together with the legislator. All European institutions will be involved to make sure that Europe is equipped with the currency of the future. Cash is here to stay. You will have all options, cash and digital cash. So what does it mean for you? For consumers, it would be free and easy to use everywhere in the euro area. All of that, of course, is subject to the legislative process. Cash or digital, the choice will be yours. Your euro, your choice. A good team which is focused on accelerating the pace and hopefully campaigning enough with all the stakeholders, meaning European Parliament, meaning European Council, meaning European Commission, so that we can eventually, not put to bed, but put to reality this digital euro. The deadline for us is going to be October of 25, and we are getting ready for that deadline, but we will not be able to move unless the other parties, the stakeholders, as I call them, Commission, Council and Parliament, actually complete the legislative process, without which we will not be able to move. And I think it is critically important, and it seems to the agnostic or the skeptics, it seems to be more relevant and more of an imperative now than ever before, both on the wholesale and on the retail level, both.
So one of the things to note from those two clips I just played, she said that the digital euro is on the move. So by implication, we are also on the move. That bit that from what our governor said, that we are still in consultations here and there, nothing has moved. That's a lie. Everyone is on the move as per these global entities that are pushing this on each and every nation. He said that CBDC is the currency of the future. Again, that they are all touting as the new the new normal. Their phrase is free and easy to use. So they are selling you convenience as the unique selling proposition, that is free, it's easy to use, and in terms of cross-border transactions. And again, she comes here and stresses that cash is here to stay. We will have all options, cash and digital. The choice will be yours. Again, I want to reiterate that that's a lie. These people do not ever want you to have any choice in regard to anything. They are control freaks. And again, I'll say, don't believe me. You'll hear her in the other clips I'll play, where you'll notice that they have waged a war against cash. Already, it's ongoing in Europe, in the US, wherever, especially in Europe. At least that's what she mentioned. And she mentioned that all stakeholders will be involved as far as the digital euro is concerned, that all stakeholders will be involved. That's the EU Parliament, the EU Council, and the European Commission. But again, you have to know that these are one and the same. So if you are saying that you're going to consult the other when the other is also in on the plot or in on the agenda, then what manner of consultations are those? You know, there's nothing like consultation. These are arguments, but again, they want to put on a facade to of us that there are consultations, serious consultations that are going into this. Yes, it's a top-down order that has been given to every nation to implement, again, leading to one thing: control. Again, don't believe me, but we are going to look at what some of them have said about central bank currencies, whether by mistake or intentional, but they are in their words. You can pick their exact intentions precisely, and then you'll know how evil this agenda is. So let's first watch this clip by Christine Lagarde, again, like I said, the president of European Central Bank, what she had to say about the CBDCs.
You're introducing the electronic euro, as I know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how can switching to an electronic currency help?
Now we have in Europe this threshold above 1,000 euros, you cannot pay cash. If you do, you are on the grey market. You take your risk. You get caught, you are fined, or you go in jail. But you know, the digital euro is going to have a limited amount of control. There will be control. You're right. You're completely right. We are considering whether for very small amounts, you know, anything that is around 300, 400 euros, we could have a mechanism where there is zero control. But that could be dangerous. The terrorist attacks on France back 10 years ago were entirely financed by those very small anonymous credit cards that you can recharge in total anonymity.
So there you have it. The same lady that said that cash is here to stay is revealing to you that there is an ongoing war against cash. They ask her a simple question: how can switching to an electronic currency help? So you'd expect the answer to be to help me, the user, me, the everyday person. How is it going to help me? How is it beneficial? Of what advantage is it? And this is the advantage that she cites. Now we have in Europe this threshold above 1,000 euros. You cannot pay cash. What? So how is that helping me? Is that helping me or the entities that are pushing for this agenda? And why do they want to get rid of cash? We shall get into that later. But this reveals that what they're saying that they will coexist as a lie. That in Europe, they have already waged a war against cash. And they're saying that if you spend above 1,000 euros, your own money, the money you've worked for, if you spend it in cash, that they are coming for you, that you are on the grey market, or you may call it the black market. They will come for you. Either you take the risk, either if you're caught, it's a fine, or you go to jail. You're going to jail not for stealing money. You're going to jail for using your own money, but opting to use cash other than cryptocurrency. Why are people so angry about people using cash to the point that they don't even penalize them? These are not thieves or robbers. No. And then she goes on and said Victoria is going to have limited amounts of control. Again, limited amounts of control. So who's going to be in charge of this control? The same people passing the regulations, the same people overseeing the process are the same people imposing these controls. You get what I'm saying? So there will be the overall intent is to control your expenditure of this money, of your money, to ensure that you spend your money according to their whims. That when they say spend it here, you spend it where they want you to spend it, when they want you to spend it, in the amounts they want you to spend, on goods they want you to spend on. And again, that also will zero down to if you are an obedient citizen. Because if you're bad and say something on social and whatever, they can again cut back on your money and say now you have no access. Or beyond this boundary, you have no access. Or no, you can't buy that good because of this and this. Those are the controls they are talking about. But again, we shall hear them from other, from themselves or other people on this very podcast. I'll explore others. And the very person that said that, they say that cash is here to stay. Now they are turning around to wage war against cash. So that coexistence may be just a process before they finally phase out cash completely and then launch out into only digital currency and then launch this control. But if you don't see this as intrusive, that someone wants to imprison you, to fine you for using your cash, which you have not stolen, then then perhaps you too may need to review your stand on certain of these matters. But we cannot demonize digital currencies, central bank digital currencies, by simply looking at the comments of one person, big as she is. Let's look at another. This is economist Aswa Prasad. He was here speaking at the World Economic Forum in China, I think earlier this year, 2025. And here is what he had to say about the benefits of the central bank digital currencies. Here for yourself.
And the one final note I will make is that if you think about the benefits of digital money, there are huge potential gains. It's not just about digital forms of physical currency. You can have programmability, units of central bank currency with expiry dates. You could have, as I argue in my book, a potentially better and some people might see it, or a darker world where the government decides that units of central bank money can be used to purchase some things, but not other things that it deems less desirable, like say ammunition or drugs or pornography or something of the sort. And that is very powerful in terms of the use of a CBDC.
Well, you've heard for yourself, and perhaps to stress certain points, here is when it starts off by, again, like Christine Lagarde before, talking about the benefits of digital money. Listen, the benefits, okay? Now, there you pay more attention, okay, how is this central bank digital currency going to help me? You're looking for the benefits. And then it says there are huge potential gains. Even pay more attention. It's not just about digital forms of physical currency. Okay, take us deeper. And then he introduces a very good term here that we need to delve into deeper. He said they have programmability. Programmability. Now, it comes from programming something. Now, the issue with this money is that they are going to be able to program the money. Now, you may think programming, so no, programming is simple. I mean, it's already being done. Like when you go to your ATM to pick cash, that depending on the account that you have, some accounts they say you cannot withdraw over, say, 800K or 1 million at a go. And some may say, okay, you can withdraw 1 million at a go, but you cannot exceed 2 million per day. They programmed those machines. As per that account you've opened, that's the maximum you can withdraw per withdrawal or per day. Or they can say mobile money, you cannot exceed this amount as your balance on mobile money. Or you cannot send much more than this. Like it was programmed that way. So also these central bank digital currencies will have that function. They'll be able to be programmed. And the thing is, we don't have to guess how they'll be programmed and to what end. He mentioned it. He says units of central bank digital currencies will have expiry dates. What? So your money will be able to expire. The money that I made. So if I save it, I put it in a savings account. So it will be able to expire. Expire how? Explain to me how my money expires. Okay, some of us, we had those days of data expiring. So you haven't used your data, but the time frame from which you're supposed to use it has gone past. So your data expires. How? So now you have money expiring. But then she said that it continues, we can have where government can decide units of central bank money that can be used to purchase some things and not other things. So the central bank will have the control over what you can purchase and what you cannot purchase. Okay? So, and what it deems to be less desirable, like ammunition, drugs, or pornography, what it deems to be. So the central bank will have the ability to program your money and say, no, this is not desirable for you. You shouldn't be driving how can you be driving this SUV? No. It's not desirable for you. We see the level you're at. you can't drive this, it's producing out of fumes, and climate change and all this. No, you can't. This is not desirable for you. So they will be choosing for you what to buy and in what quantities to buy it. And the people we're dealing with are evil people who shall see them. We shall see them further. Let me not go ahead of myself, but you saw them during the pandemic. Those are the same people behind this. So they'll be able to tell you that, today you cannot fly out because of the fumes you see fighting climate change. But again, there are some essential workers for them who will be able to enjoy. And of course, they're making these rules for you, but not for them. You saw that during the pandemic, that where you couldn't move for them, they could move. They made rules for you, curfews and whatever, while for them, they're enjoying themselves. And these very people now are back with this thing to control how you spend your money, when you spend it, why you spend it, in what quantities you spend it, and what commodities you spend it on. The commodities they deem harmful to the environment, those ones don't touch. Say when they say that cows when they fat, that carbon dioxide also is very harmful to the environment, so we should perhaps cut down on our consumption of meat. Therefore, when they can program your money, that in a month you eat 1 kilo of meat. No matter how much money you have, they have programmed your money that you can't do what? You cannot eat 1 more kilo. Now, 1 more kilo of beef. Now, also in the name of fighting this or that, no one should move beyond this point. Now, as you try to move beyond that point, your money is cut off somewhere and it cannot work, or you cannot purchase things using your digital currency outside of a certain jurisdiction because it was programmed. Now, that it should be the most scary bit about central bank digital currencies, their programmability, and they're talking about it. This gentleman here mentions ammunition, drugs, and pornography. Of course, those are things that we can all agree on, generally speaking. You understand? But again, we find it throws in the ammunition because again, these are people who are again also in outside countries. There are laws where people are allowed to have guns and for protection. But these people are fighting those laws where they don't want people to own guns. So that again, when they unleash this kind of tyranny, people are defenseless. So again, it throws in ammunition, drugs, and can also say yes, this will be very good. But it will go beyond this. To what you are wearing, what you are eating, where you're going, it is they'll program the money that way. You see, and it says, and that's very powerful in terms of the use of CBDCs. Powerful to who? To the control freaks who are behind this agenda, and this will have the power to decide for you what you see, and they'll have the power to decide for you, what you purchase, etc. So you find that while they talk about it in glowing terms, once in a while, I don't know how the truth escapes them, but they reveal the ugly nature of the central bank's digital currencies, and not just its ugly nature, but their ugly intentions. And now, if you're comfortable having your money programmed, then wherever, go for it. But I said the resistance should start now against the issuance of central bank digital currency. But again, let us look at other experts, what they have revealed about the ugly nature or the evil nature of these digital currencies. Let's look at another individual or lady called Pippa Malmgren. She's the World Economic Forum global leader for tomorrow. And here she was speaking at the 2022 World Government Summit, where the theme was, "Are we ready for a new world order?" Let's hear what she said.
What underpins a world order is always the financial system. And what we're seeing in the world today, I think, is we are on the brink of a dramatic change where we are about to, and I'll say this boldly, we're about to abandon the traditional system of money and accounting and introduce a new one. And the new accounting is what we call blockchain. It means digital. It means having a almost perfect record of every single transaction that happens in the economy, which will give us far greater clarity over what's going on. It also raises huge dangers in terms of the balance of power between states and citizens. Most people think that digital money is crypto and private, but what I see are superpowers introducing digital currency. The Chinese were the first. The US is on the brink, I think, of moving in the same direction. The Europeans have committed to that as well.
Well, so that's Pippa Malmgren, the global leader for tomorrow at World Health Economic Forum. Key points to note, she talks about that what underpins the world order is always the financial system. This then explains why they are so intent at controlling the financial system. This is why I told you that this is worse than COVID. Because with COVID, we saw whatever they administered, the lockdowns, the curfews, while they did all that, they were not in total control of your finances. They perhaps didn't know how much and where you spent it, although they tightened things here and there. But with this, she mentioned that what underpins any world order, like the world order they want to bring to pass, is always the financial system. If you don't have the financial system under your grip, there's no financial order you're going to put in place effectively. So now you see why they're obsessed with the launching of the central bank digital currencies. It's mainly to control you, see what you earn, see your transactions, and mainly to control where you spend, how you spend, when you spend, etc. And also she mentioned something like they're abandoning the traditional system of money and accounting to introduce the new one. But who is introducing this new one and to what end? That's what you need to ask yourself. Of course, they'll clothe it in a, like we've seen in a lot of, gibberish, good sounding words, efficiency, security, etc. etc. But the real issue here is control. And they want to control you to the point that you'll own nothing and still be happy, like their mantra is at the World Economic Forum. And she said that the central bank cryptocurrencies will also be a means of having, will provide them with the means of having an almost perfect record of every single transaction that happens in the economy, which gives them far greater clarity over what's going on. Do you think they want all this clarity to budget for you, to plan for you? Well, they may tell you that, but they want all this clarity to control you, to determine what you buy and when to buy it, and in what quantities to buy it, where even to buy it, etc. Everything. That to the level that you comply with their other agendas that they are going to bring to pass, then you'll be able to access some of your money. If you don't comply, some of that money can be taken away. You can be even shut out of your own account. These are not speculative words, but these are words they themselves have mentioned. And again, we shall pause here and look at another person and what they also revealed about the central bank digital currencies and why you should be concerned and start to speak up. So this is Rose Goodwin, the managing director of the UN Better Than Cash Alliance. I think she was speaking at Better Than Cash Alliance in 2019. And let's see what she said.
We have to achieve the SDGs in 10 years. I'm going to talk about that, but with a quick introduction to the Better Than Cash Alliance. We're hosted by the United Nations, and we are an alliance of governments and companies and international organizations that are each committed, each has to commit before they join the alliance to moving away from cash to some form of digital option. We've got to solve this problem. And we have to solve it because we care about achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Did you know that every single government in the world has committed to these? Every single government to agree to these. The government of Norway, the government of Australia, the government of Ethiopia, the government of Rwanda. And the timeline is 10 years from now.
Well, you see there, she is desperate to solve the problem of cash. When did cash become a problem and why? They said they need to solve the problem of cash in order to achieve the sustainable development goals of the Agenda 2030. What has cash got to do with the sustainable development goals or Agenda 2030? Cash, how is cash related to that agenda? Of course, I'll give you a hint. Before I even get into the hint, now you see they're calling it the problem of cash. Now you have to disregard whoever is trying to tell you that cash will coexist with these digital currencies. No, there's no plan for cash coexisting with the central bank digital currencies. The end game is to erase cash, put cash out of the way, so that we are only using central bank digital currencies. Unless you've heard it from the mouths of so many now. But then how does cash become a problem? A problem or a stumbling block to achieving the sustainable development goals, because they want to enforce everyone to start to adhere to their sustainable development goals, key of which is the purported fight against climate change. How are they going to force that? That say, for example, if they say that, fuel cars or diesel cars release or emit a lot of, these fossil fumes into the atmosphere, causing climate change. So they will come in and tell you, no, how do we cut back on individuals buying fuel cars? So with the central bank digital currencies, which is programmed, they can control you what to buy. So they can say, no, you cannot buy that car because you are fighting climate change. No, you cannot fly out this so many times or to that vacation because of the emissions. You'll be accounted. You'll be, responsible for when you fly from destination one to another. So they'll be able to stop you from doing that. How? By just programming your money that it cannot buy certain services or products. So that's how they want to use cash to force these things down everyone's throat, whether they want to participate or play any part in them or not. They say, according to us, another measure of fighting, climate change, we shouldn't be doing this. Now, whether you have your money or not, they just control where you're going to spend it. So that's why she's calling it the problem of cash in regard to the attainment of these sustainable development goals. But again, she's not the last one. Let us look at another individual and what they said also about what they revealed concerning these cryptocurrencies. So the person we're going to look up next is Augustine Carstens, the general manager, the Bank of International Settlements. Now, the Bank of International Settlements is the central bank of central banks. You could say this, the central bank that overlooks all central banks. And now let us hear what he said about the potential of these central bank cryptocurrencies. Hear him out.
We tend to establish the equivalence with cash, and there is a huge difference there. For example, in cash, we don't know, for example, who's using a $100 bill today. We don't know who is using a 1,000 peso bill today. A key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability. And also, we will have the technology to enforce that. Those two issues are extremely important, and that makes a huge difference with respect to what cash is.
Well, you've heard it for yourselves. It says that the central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations. They'll have absolute control on the rules and regulations. Therefore, they'll determine when to change them, when to drift them here and there. Like you have not been part of the process that has gotten us thus far. So they'll have absolute control on the rules and regulations. To what end? Why do they want absolute control? To determine the use of your money. To determine for you how you are to use the money. Leave our own motivational speakers who will tell you use your money like this, and then they go away, they leave you the liberty either to listen to them or not. These ones want to force you to use your money in particular ways that they deem fit. If you don't agree, they just lock you out. It's digital, I mean. They just lock you out and you have no access. The most scariest thing actually I say here that besides the absolute control and the ability to determine how you use your money, to tell how you use your money, is that they will have the technology to enforce that. You see what they're talking about? That besides the absolute control, over regulations, besides even determining how you use your money, they will have the infrastructure, the technological infrastructure to enforce that. So now, if you still think that central bank digital currencies are being proposed for your good or for any noble cause, you have to think again here. These are not mere low riff kind of people. These are top people in high places. Whether these things they said their tongues or not, we don't know. I cannot tell that, but they say them. Non 1, non 2, non 3 in UN, World Economic Forum. This is the Bank of International Settlements. And again, we are going to hear from at least 2 more high-ranking, officials and what they said about these digital currencies. Just to wake you up on the evil that they want to unleash on the global citizens. This year is the next one we're going to look at is BOLI, as you hear the name, BOLI, is the IMF, the International Monetary Fund Deputy Managing Director. We are going to see what he also says about central bank digital currencies. Watch.
The third way we think CBDC can improve financial inclusion is through what we call programmability. That is, CBDC can allow government agencies and private sector players to program, to create smart contracts, to allow targeted policy functions. For example, welfare payment. For example, consumption coupon. For example, food stamp. By programming CBDC, those money can be precisely targeted for what kind of people can own and what kind of use this money can be utilized. For example, for food. So this potential programmability can help government agencies to precisely target their support to those people who need support.
At least it does a good job of trying to show us the positive side of programmability of the central bank digital currencies. He talks about, government agencies and private sector players can program the money to ensure targeted policy deliverance. Now, programming this money to ensure targeted policy deliverance, I'll break it down for you. For example, I have the parish development model here where the government wants to give money all the way to the level of the parishes. But there are intermediaries, so they are all through whom the money has to go through to get to the final recipient. Okay. Now he said that with the ability to program this central digital central bank digital currencies, they won't need the third parties. The central bank can just issue the tokens or the money straight onto your account, because you yourself also have a digital account. So they just move it from their central bank into your account. No third parties. It is fast, it's secure, no bureaucracies, no corruption also. So all the good things around programmability, and especially when it comes to the distribution of targeted government policies, that are meant to reach certain people. So if you want to give a token to the elderly or certain people in Bududa that have suffered, perhaps landslides, or there's a famine in a certain part of the country, and you want to specifically reach out to those people and, give them something, instead of going with the money and handing it over to the leaders, and the leaders swindle it here and there, you just divert it. You've heard about some soldiers or some families who are still perhaps asking for their money from the war of 86, how they suffered if they are promised all this. They don't have to go through all that. The central bank just wires the money onto their digital parcels or digital wallets. So he's saying that it will be that easy. But again, he has not showed you the other side of programmable money. The other side of control, the other side of seeing each and every transaction, the other side of locking you out of your own account if you don't comply with certain government policies or global policies that they pass. If they say, for example, that you're supposed to have your 7th booster for COVID and for you stopped on 5 and you don't update and they can tell from their digital system, then they can knock you out till you get your 8th booster. You understand? So he has not revealed that other side of programming your money, that they can program it that beyond these parameters, you don't have the ability to spend your money. If we say that we are fighting this, therefore everyone should keep within 15 minutes of their residence, and where you want to go and you are staying in Kampala and you want to go and check on your mother in Kabale, no, you can't go because they have said for this time period, let everyone stay within their locality because we are fighting a certain issue, ABCD. So they will just be able to lock you out of your money because of that the ability of programming that money. But he has not showed it that side. He has flipped it and showed you the wonders of the programmability of the central bank digital currencies. And the next person we are looking at is the head of the International Monetary Fund, and that is Kristalina Georgieva. And she also had an interesting, take on this abilities and the potential abilities of the central bank digital currencies. Let's listen to her here for a few seconds.
That if we are to be successful, CBDCs could not be fragmented national propositions. To have transactions more efficient and fairer, we need systems that connect countries. In other words, we need interoperability. And for this reason, at the IMF, we are working hard on the concept of a global CBDC platform to trade and to manage risks.
Well, that's Kristalina Georgieva, the head of IMF. She said something interesting that the CBDCs should not be fragmented national prepositions. So, what is she talking about? She's talking about or proposing that, not proposing, saying IMF is working hard on a concept of global CBDC platform, so that all the CBDC operations are controlled at one center. So these things of nations saying they are individually checking out, investigating, stakeholder, no. At the end of it, perhaps it's process by process. At the end of it all has to be centrally managed or controlled. And she makes no secret of that. She said CBDCs should not be fragmented national prepositions, which again plays right into the hands or into the concept of the globalists who want everything to be centrally, managed. They don't like individual nationalistic or patriotic forces. That's why they try to dismantle and fight in nationalistic forces, so they cannot again be proposing central bank digital currencies to be managed nationally. They want them to be managed globally by a certain entity to ensure maximum and effective control. Of course, he has said it is meant to ensure efficiency and fair transactions. No, it's not meant to. It's meant to ensure complete and absolute control over the entire system, that every central bank, whatever currency it has issued, is managed at one central location. And again, this is something that our BOU governor also alluded to in his speech. He said that BOU is undertaking efforts towards an inclusive, innovative, and globally connected ecosystem. Globally connected ecosystem. This is not for an individual thing for each state to undertake. The ultimate goal is to ensure a global controlled system by these entities that control these things. So from all those people, from the heads of IMF to the European Central Bank, to the World Economic Forum, to several other experts that we've looked at at the UN, etc. You can see that here and there, once they have told us what their actual intentions are in regard to these CBDCs, and they have revealed the ultimate dangers and the evil behind this agenda. So now we are going to look at what also some experts that have been, following this agenda undoubtedly rolled out from its inception, how to say about it. So we are going to watch two clips by this lady called Catherine Fitz. She's a former Wall Street investment banker and a former Bush administration official. So we are looking at high-placed individuals who have, she's a banker, so she cannot be taken as, a layman. Her opinion should matter in regard to the central bank digital currencies and what the purpose behind them really is. Let's watch these two clips and then I shall come back and then have an overview about what she has said and then move on to another person and what they too have said about it.
CBDC stands for Central Bank Digital Currency. It is a currency issued directly by the central banks. It can be done on a wholesale basis, which is to essentially allow the commercial banks to issue it on a retail basis and do the management of it on retail and then relate back to the central bank, which will be a wholesaler, or it can be done directly by the central bank doing directly a retail CBDC. The challenge with CBDC is it gives the central bankers complete control and the ability to program your money. What it does is it gives them the ability to say what you can use your money for, where you can use your money. It's called programmable money. Some people call it smart contracts. I call it very stupid contracts. But it gives you the ability to issue programmable money and do complete surveillance and control of where and how people use their money. Now, I say that CBDCs are quite dangerous, and they are. However, it's very important to understand that this kind of complete control comes about not through CBDCs, but having an all-digital monetary system. So what we want to stop is an all-digital monetary system because it is possible to do the equivalent of CBDCs on a private basis. So I can use merchant codes with your bank account and your credit card. I can kick you off your online payment systems if I don't like what you're saying on social media. There are many different ways if we go to an all-digital financial system. We have digitized throughout our economy, so our homes are full of digitized equipment that can be identified and surveilled. Our cars are more and more electric. They can be stopped remotely. The thing to understand is if we go to an all-digital transaction system, financial transaction system, with a digital ID, so I can tell you're you and I'm me with great precision, then suddenly all those different digitized items and equipments and systems snap into one complete control grid. And the key to that snapping into the control grid is the digital ID and the all-digital monetary system. Now, let me tell you what that looks like, because we don't have a financial problem. We have a governance problem. If you do it in a system where a secret governance system that is non-transparent and outside of your control, if that gives them the power to basically turn on and shut off your transactions, we're in a coup d'etat world. By creating an all-digital transaction system with a digitized economy and a digital ID, suddenly the central bankers now control fiscal policy. They can determine where you go, when you go. So let's go back to the pandemic. During the pandemic, if the lockdown said you can't go more than a mile from your home and you can only go that on Tuesday and Thursday, in an all-digitized economy with satellite flying overhead, they can literally track you, and if you don't do what they say, they can turn off your money. Now, what this means is you not only have usurping of the people's representatives, but you have a usurping of the state powers. So under the Constitution, the powers not delegated to the federal government are reserved to the states. But now the central bankers asserting line of fiscal policy, making the rules and enforcing them centrally, can literally control healthcare or other powers reserved to the states, and by the ability to literally control your financial transactions. The way to make that transition is just say total control. If you don't eat cricket flour and synthetic meat made in a lab, we'll turn off your money. Use cash, encourage the local businesses to use cash, encourage your local banks to support cash. You can always use cash, and you can use checks. Keep the cash and check systems going.
There is a concerted attempt by governments around the world to digitize commerce and to digitize currency and to basically control people through money.
Correct.
That's correct. Okay, so that was my first question. Is this happening? Am I imagining it?
It's absolutely happening. And what's important to understand, it's been happening for a long time. In other words, this is like an invisible corral that they've been building around you for a long, long time. Because how do a few sneak up on the many? Well, you have to do it very quietly and visibly before you throw the trap.
Smart.
So essentially what they're building, because it's converting a currency system into a control system. So it's really the end of currency. And what they're doing is they've been building the different digital pieces. And when it integrates and comes together, then you literally have a digital concentration camp. It's complete and utter control.
Otherwise known as the world.
Here's the thing to understand. You and I grew up in a world where there was mass media, where you were pitching stories, so you had 57 varieties of ice cream and you're pitching them to 57 different niches, but you're still pitching to mass audiences. What we're talking about is a system where you can surveil, control, and influence one person at a time. And with AI and software, each person can have their custom surveillance, influence, nudging, and control system.
And punishment.
Yes. Enforcement.
Catherine there mentioned something very, very, very profound that I have heard no other expert actually mention. She said that what these central bank digital currencies actually are, or what these entities actually are doing, is to convert a currency system into a control system. So it will no longer be mere currency. It will be a control system. Control system how? That if you don't adhere to their agendas or to any commands that they give, then you won't be able to use your money. If you adhere, then you'll be able to use your money. They will control, use it, and etc. So they're turning currency into a control system. This is not mere flipping from a note or a coin into a digital currency. Like maybe if I don't have cash, I have my mobile money. No, it's not that. This is what refers to as a digital prison to control the population. And she goes ahead. Of course, here they'll be using your money. Using your money will depend on how you comply to their agendas that they will have rolled out. And of course, they are going to be rolling out so many agendas. Again, all meant to control you, whether medically or parameter, depending on your movements, etc. But depending on how you adhere to them, then it will enable you to use your money or not, access your money or not. This refers to as a digital concentration camp, where we shall be in there with people ready to whip us into place if we try to step out of line. Whip you into place by just flipping you off the switch when you can't access your money, saying that perhaps you can't buy this or buy that or that. Okay, this she calls literally financial tyranny, but it even goes beyond financial tyranny. But again, we know that you can easily rule someone if you have a hold on them financially. How would you be able to spend? How would you be able even to access hospitals, or even to just go to the beach or buy this? You won't be able to trade unless you adhere to their whims. So I think she's very right, especially on the front of turning a digital currency. That digital currencies are not just digital currencies. It's converting our banknotes and coins into a control system. Until that this is like a digital concentration camp. Therefore, I don't want us to sleepwalk into this concentration camp. That's why I'm sounding these alarm bells that you too may wake up your neighbor, and your neighbor also wakes up another, and we resist this evil that is already by our doorstep. Here we are going to look at the German economics professor called Richard Wagner. I say Wagner because of the way they pronounce, the Germans pronounce their W's. It's not, they pronounce them as V, but it's W-E-M-E-R, Richard Wagner. So he also has a quite doomsday take on the central bank digital currencies, if they ever be rolled out globally to the degree or to the extent that these globalists want them to be rolled out. Again, we shall be watching 2 of these clips, and then we'll return and we discuss the takeouts from them.
The really big dangers of CBDCs are the programmability, which is that essentially it's not even money. It's like your money becomes potential money because it depends on a central planner to agree that you should now be allowed to spend this money in this location for this particular transaction and in this particular volume that you want to do. Well, why should that be conditional? But it is going to be when they describe programmability. That's what it's all about. That you can, of course, they present it from a positive side. We can give money to the people who really need it. That's how they will formulate it. But the other side of the coin is that this means that they have their ideas on who should spend money on what and when. And that will be reflected, and sometimes when you want to spend, they'll decide this is no good because you've already used too much carbon. Your carbon footprint is too big, or you've eaten too much beef, or whatever it may be. So we are talking about essentially some kind of social credit scoring or other similar system, and really it's not your money anymore. The push for CBDCs is the final step in a multi-decade program by central planners to increase their power over the people, over countries. This is the ultimate step because the powers of CBDCs are so extraordinary that, even the worst dictators in past centuries could only have dreamt of having such enormous power over the lives of so many people. We are talking about a very dystopian future if we allow central banks to issue central bank digital currencies. And it will be a completely totalitarian system of such frightening proportions, it's hard to imagine.
How have the central bankers, this is my last slide because my 12 minutes are just up, have reacted to the truth coming out? They admit that they've been telling porkies, and now they propose to increase their power. So central bankers belatedly admit, oh, now that you've mentioned it, yes, banks create the money supply. So let's abolish that now. And also, by the way, let's abolish cash. So what should we do? Well, introduce digital cybercurrency that central banks issue and control, and thereby gain total control over all economic transactions, decisions, and the whole lot you've just heard from the CEO of the GDI. So the greatest concentration of central banking power in history is really the bid they're aiming at. That's the central bank's goal. And, of course, digital accounts of dissenters and regime critics could be switched off. It would be very difficult to even purchase necessities. So this is an Orwellian dystopia of total control, the end of any freedoms. That's really what central banks are aiming at. Several central banks have, like the Bank of England, already prepared their microchip implant, RFID chip, to be implanted under your skin. And why is the sudden discussion about universal basic income from all the grassroots and inverted commas movements and billionaires? Oh, universal basic income is the bribe for you to accept the microchip. The overarching trend of the 20th century is concentration of power in the hands of the few. That's what we have to keep in mind. We have to work against this. We don't want to have these unaccountable central planners making decisions. We need decentralization, and the solution therefore is to maintain public money in the hands of local community banks, decentralize decision-making, give local people the power in the form of local public banks and local not-for-profit community banks. As I walked in, I was delighted to see that the Gottlieb Duttweiler Institute is also about Genossenschaften, cooperatives, and of course, the majority of banks in Germany are cooperative banks, and that's really what we need. So
this economics professor really reveals quite a lot. Scary stuff, but just to go over some of them, it says that this is meant to concentrate power in the hands of a few. That at least we've gone over that. That once cash has disappeared from the system, the money you think belongs to you will no longer belong to you, but to the government in form of credit that we have talked about, that they'll be giving to you as in accordance to how you adhere to, the globalist agendas and rules and regulations. If you don't adhere, it's chopped away. If you adhere, it's given to you. So that's not exactly your money. It's something that as if someone's rewarding you for your good behavior or punishing you for your bad behavior. You cannot exactly call that money. Part of your access to your digital credit will depend on your compliance rules and regulations. We talked about that. No matter how dystopian these regulations will be, such as whatever it is, it could be vaccinations, it could be whatever they may want to pass at the time. The amount of credit you can spend each month will be set by the government and can be turned off at its discretion, depending on, and again, how obedient you are to their rules and regulations. You are only allowed to travel to places where the state decides where you should go. So again, you see the overreach of the state. If you say something negative, perhaps online, your credit could be reduced or turned off. If you are if you are monitored in a place you are not authorized to be, such as a park outside your residential area, your credit could be reduced. Remember how people used to go to the beach here and there during COVID times, lockdowns, curfews, and all. If you are seen at the beach, yeah, you could be punished. Your money are removed. But the ultimate globalist plan is to introduce. This is the biggest scary bit, to introduce CBDCs as a chip under your skin. This it says it will be used to and they say that you mentioned something, but we shall go into the depth of this perhaps in other episodes, that how they will introduce these CBDCs in a chip and they'll place it under your skin. They will introduce something like a universal basic income, where they'll say that you see so many people are broke, so can you decide at least an amount to give people per month? Say if you're in Uganda and they say they're going to give you 2 million per month. So that again, to access that money, you have to have this chip under your skin, so that you have access to your money. They'll be giving you, to help poverty alleviation. Myoga, if you like, in Tanduka, if you like, parish development model, if you like. But again, to access that money, this money is loaded onto this chip and placed under your skin. How many people will resist that? How many people? You get, so there will be a carrot for you to accept certain of these measures, but we shall not go into the chip today, but it is one of the ultimate plans. And he mentioned that the power of the CBDCs is so extraordinary that even the worst dictators in past centuries could only dream of having such enormous power over the lives of so many people. No one in the history of nation or the dictators has been able to achieve all the things that we've so far seen, that the central bank cryptocurrencies will be able to do, all these architects of this agenda will be able to have this kind of power. These CBDCs will give them a lot of power over your concept, over your entire behavior, because like Catherine Fitz noted, it will shift from being a currency and become a control measure, a control system, where they switch you off and switch on, reduce your money or increase, depending on how you comply to their rules and regulations. Who has had that on the scale of the world, the entire world? Who has had that? I don't know any dictator who has done that. But that's their ultimate plan, and they'll be able to do that, especially if they're even when they get to that ultimate stage of planting it under your skin. Now, let's watch at two other experts and what they also said about these central bank cryptocurrencies, and then we shall move on from that. But the next one we are going to look at is the award-winning investigative journalist called Alex Newman, and what his take, all his findings have been thus far in regard to the central bank cryptocurrencies.
Alex, good to see you.
You too. Thank you for having me, Josh.
So, Alex, is the European Union really calling for like a global digital ID and digital currencies right now?
They are. In fact, they're working on these projects right now. They've been actually working on them for a very long time. They're only just now kind of making it more public and starting to market these ideas to the public. But the idea of a digital ID, they actually first proposed a digital vaccine passport in the documents that I found back in May of 2019, long before anybody had ever heard of COVID. The digital ID agenda has been pushed by the Rockefeller Foundation and Bill Gates and Microsoft going back almost a decade now publicly when they created ID 2020. And the EU, in partnership with the UN, is now carrying the ball down the field, and I think we can expect to see it very soon if it's not stopped.
I mean, what would this look like in practice if they were to do it?
Well, all of these things are coming together into one giant machine, Josh. And so the digital currency is happening in parallel with the digital IDs because each one is a necessary component of the broader system that they're building. They're not sharing this with the public yet. They're acting like the digital ID is its own separate independent thing. The push for central bank digital currencies, that's a separate independent thing. But really, these are all connected. And what they want to do, I'm glad you mentioned the Chinese social credit score system. That is ultimately the vision. And the Financial Times inadvertently maybe revealed that just recently in an article. They said that as they roll out CBDCs, these are going to have to be tied to a national digital ID that's going to contain private information about every individual, including their credit information and other data. And so at the World Economic Forum, they've been talking about this now for several years. They want to be able to regulate what you purchase with your central bank digital currency, which is only possible if it's connected to your digital ID. They want to regulate how much CO2 you're emitting, which will be possible once all these systems are connected. So this is coming very, very rapidly. And it's not just in the EU. There are now at least a dozen states in the United States that are pushing forward with digital IDs. And I just flew through Des Moines 2 or 3 days ago. They're now accepting digital IDs at the TSA. So this will be here very soon, again, if people don't stop it. What we have here is kind of a fusion of state and corporate power being used to bring this system into place with the digital IDs, with the digital currencies, and really the digitization of absolutely everything, Josh. What people need to understand is this is not going to stop with your ID and your money. Everything will be digital until you get to what Klaus Schwab described as Klaus Schwab is, of course, the founder and the head of the World Economic Forum, the UN partner in implementing Agenda 2030. He described it as the fusion of our digital and our biological identities, which, the implications of that are more than we're going to have time to get into today, but absolutely terrifying if you value individual liberty and privacy.
So, as a journalist, of course, Alex Newman notes that they are now actively marketing these ideas to the public. Yes, they are. You've seen now what was shared in the Daily Monitor, and you can go and also Google search Uganda cashless. You'll see so many articles come up, and the way they are marketing them to the public is by shaping the parameter of the discussion, where it should go and how far it should go, which topics to touch. So that's why you see that the topics to touch are, can we go retail, CBDCs or wholesale CBDCs? Do we have the technological infrastructure to sustain CBDCs? Do we have the legal framework to support CBDCs? What will happen to the financial ecosystem? They frame the debate around that. So they show you that it's coming, but you have a few issues here and there. But generally speaking, it's good. It's going to increase efficiency. There won't be rituals anymore because there won't be any counterfeit. The money is issued by central bank, by the central bank straight onto your own account. So where is someone going to plug you? No one is holding a note or even a coin. So it's just moving virtually. So again, they are going to sell so many things. It will be able to fight. We shall be able to fight terrorism. How will terrorists then access money when they have all this oversight? Who's spending money? Who's sending money where? Who has just bought the firearm? Who has just bought this ammunition? They'll be able to tell that. So they are selling to us that they'll be able to fight even now at money laundering, etc. So they are all talking about these glorious things that the central bank cryptocurrencies will be able to solve. And that's the discussion, that's the marketing that they're doing, but they're not showing you the evil end or evil intentions of these central bank cryptocurrencies. And that's a point that he brings out so well, and that these are, and at least mention some of the architects of this agenda, the unelected globalists through their institutions like the UN or the Economic Forum, the International Monetary Fund, and we've seen the International Bank for the Bank for International Settlements, etc. Those are the institutions that they are using or through whom this global agenda is being rolled out. And you also mentioned that there is one gigantic digital machine. CBDCs are only part of it. And also Catherine Fitz mentioned that is a whole gigantic, digital machine that they want to bring in that also will include national digital IDs as the ultimate state that will centralize all these things that they're doing. And that they want to introduce the Chinese social credit system. The social credit system, again, is what you have been mentioning here. If you behave well, again, you can use your money. If you don't behave well, your money is stripped off or you are locked out of your account. Again, finally, let's look at the former Vice President of Pfizer, Dr. Mike Yadon, and what he said about the dangers of the central bank digital currencies.
A mandatory digital ID, the powers that can be can shrug and say, well, it's not us, it's this next viral pandemic, and you have to take the vaccine. Otherwise, your digital ID will become invalid and you'll effectively fall into house arrest. So that's what they've been rehearsing. But then I think almost the last brick in the wall of control are central bank digital currencies, basically electronic money, but issued from the Bank of England or the Federal Reserve, not high street banks. Central bank digital currencies, though, do away with high street banks for the purpose of running accounts. So now when you present your mandatory digital ID at the vendor for whatever it is, a piece of meat 6 miles from your home, the database that's connecting your electronic money and your ID knows exactly where you are to the grid reference point. It knows who you're interacting with and what it is that's proposed to be purchased. And all you need now is a simple algorithm that could decide that people from further than 5 miles from their home may not buy anything, for example. We've all heard these things, like if you've had one piece of meat in unit time, if you're not allowed to have more than one other, then you simply will find you can't buy a piece of pork, but you could buy some baked beans. And like I said earlier, all it now takes is for malign individuals to have control of the database and the algorithms. And I assure you they are malign, and they won't be a tech company in your country either. They won't be alterable by democratic processes because it'll be in the cloud, run by probably a military computer. So whoever has control of that database and its algorithm can prevent you from doing anything they choose. And don't assume they'll be benign. Their plans, as you can see from the Sustainable Development Goals, is that you will have as little mobility as possible, that you'll be probably cold unless you live in a warm country, and that you'll be hungry unless you like bugs. And I personally believe it will definitely, that situation is one that's unlivable as far as I'm concerned. Complete loss of freedom means not a world I want to be in.
So that's it for me. I mentioned that it talks about the environment control that will be concentrated in the hands of a few, controlling our purchases, everyday transactions, and the reality of the digital ID together with the CBDCs, and how it also connects to the UN Agenda 2030, and especially why it should all be resisted at all costs. Are these unfounded fears? I mean, you could have heard from all these global leaders talking about revealing what the CBDCs will be like, how evil they are, and what the experts also have to say about them. But are these unfounded fears? You may ask yourself, are we overstating the fears to certain absurd limits? Or we are simply paranoid and fear the unknown. We are used to our cash and the coins and therefore fear these digital currencies. Is it fear? Are we speaking out of fear? No, actually, we are not. Has this been done before? Yes, it has. Again, I'll leave you two examples that you look at. One is by the Irish teacher, Enoch Buck, who was locked out of his account, apparently for refusing to bow down to the transgender rules and regulations when you are teaching at a school. You refuse to adhere to that, and then you are taken to court, and then decided that you'll be locked out of his account. So he was locked out of his account reflected 0. Now that's before we get to the actual central bank digital currencies in full operation. People are being locked out of their accounts right now. And if he didn't have any cash anywhere saved, he was doomed. And he's not alone. There's another example of Edward Cornell. This one is a Canadian veteran who took part in the 2022 truckers protest in Canada. The truckers were protesting the COVID, mandates, the vaccine mandates that were being imposed on them, and they refused. They started to drive their trucks into the middle of the road to demonstrate against Justin Trudeau's, decrease. So when they identified some of them, like Edward Cornell, what they did was to lock them out of their accounts. They did that because so now what you have been talking about, the dangers of the programmability of the CBDCs is that they can lock you out if you don't obey their rules and regulations. It has already happened in several places, and these are just two examples that you are going to look at and then know where they are headed. These are mere examples, a sneak peek into the ugly future that awaits everyone who won't be deemed an essential worker if we don't resist this evil agenda now or even yesterday. Watch.
Enoch Burke here. I'm standing outside the Bank of Ireland branch in Castlebar, County Mayo. When I left my workplace today, Wilson's Hospital School, at about 5:30 in the evening, I checked my bank balance, and this is what I found. €0 in my bank account. I have been robbed of €40,617 by the courts. Judge David Nolan, Mr. Rossa Fanning, the Attorney General, and the government all working hand in hand. These people are millionaires. They're driving out of the forecourts in their big cars, but they're vultures sniffing around now to take from me everything I own, to strip from me every asset I have, and to look for anything that I might have that they can take away. That's what these people are doing. We know it all goes back to the fact that in 2022, I was demanded by Principal Niamh McShane to promote transgenderism in the school where I worked. A demand made by that principal, Niamh McShane, still a principal in a school down in Cork, a demand that should never have been made and should not be made today because there is no shred of legal authority for that demand to be made.
There I was, no cash, no access to my credit cards, and I had no money for gas. I had no money for lodging, nothing for food. What did I do?
In 2022, Eddie Cornell was at home in New Brunswick, Canada, when he began to hear chatter of a truckers' convoy making its way to Ottawa to protest the COVID lockdowns and vaccine mandates.
And I thought, I need to be there.
Little did he know that he would become publicly marked and have his bank account frozen.
I felt betrayed. I've never convicted of a crime. I wasn't charged of a crime, and yet my government found it necessary to label me and freeze everything I own.
Today, he is the co-founder of Veterans for Freedom and has filed a civil lawsuit against the Trudeau administration.
Citizens and ex-military people didn't return any violence. Nothing, not a punch, nothing. And to be beaten that way and treated like that, the world saw. They know what happened.
So, where do we go from here? You may ask. We seem to be swimming against the tide. Again, I'll start with one my major concerns that not so many people really pay attention to business news usually, especially that seems to be elitist in nature. When they hear things like, because of there's so much economic jargon that surrounds so many economic topics. When some people when they hear GDP, they switch off. What does that even mean? Okay, unless you're talking IFRIS, there they may know. But when you talk about CBDCs, even the mere acronym CBDC, someone see what's that? Digital what? So many people may switch off. Imagine dropping what's that? Programmability. It sounds even ambiguous. It just means programming, the ability to program something. So the first task for us here is to break down all this jargon and everything here into simple language, consumable language for everyone to understand this evil that is lurking in our midst. That then we may wake up and resist it. Otherwise, if it attains or retains this ambiguity and is shrouded in this so many terms, and it comes off elitist, so many people will switch off and it will sneak up on them. They'll wake up one day and they are into this prison and they won't know how they walked there. But again, secondly, like Christina Fitz also mentioned that one of the first things we need to do is to speak up and to lobby, and we have to keep the cash and the check system going. And you see that some of them called it the problem of cash. So they are all talking about, well, they talk here about, that they'll be running concurrently. They turn around and say, actually, they are fining people if they spend over 1,000, euros in cash. They are fined or they are imprisoned there on the they're on the grey market. You hear all those things. There's a war against cash. Therefore, we must fight to ensure that the cash remains. But also, perhaps primarily ensure, perhaps the CBDCs wouldn't appear so evil if I told they were running concurrently. But again, we know that they're not going to run concurrently. So perhaps the first place of fighting is to resist the CBDCs in the first place. Because once you allow them a foothold, then they will come for a stronghold. They won't just allow to coexist with the cash, because by design, they design them to exist alone and quash the cash out of the system. And again, like also Professor Richard Verma also noted that we have to fight that there is decentralization, not centralization and concentration of power in the hands of a few. That they should maintain public money in the hands of local communities, local banks, like the cooperatives, like the circles, like everything, centralize it so that there is no absolute control at a certain top place that can switch on and off certain individuals who have not adhered to certain rules and regulations. So that's a task for us all, to fight this evil that is multiple times worse than what we experienced during the pandemic. If you think the pandemic, the lockdowns, the curfews, and the forced jobs and locking down of the schools were bad, at least no one monitored your spend, no one stopped you from spending or at least doing what you wanted to do. But here, they will be able to do it. Like Professor Richard Van noted that this, not even the worst dictator in history ever had this kind of power. But then again, the power is still in our hands to resist this evil. Remember that whatever you do not resist, you permit. But for any doubting Thomases out there who are still doubting the evil nature and extent of the central bank digital currencies, I'll leave you this interview that was conducted 14 years ago by Alex Jones with a man called Aaron Russo. He reveals to you the origins and some of the entities involved in this scheme and how far back they have been planning, and especially their intentions. Bye-bye for now.
The bankers have pretty much taken control of our government. It doesn't matter Republican and Democrat anymore, because they're both the same. Neither one of them are talking about shutting down the Federal Reserve System or stopping the payment of taxes, or any of the big issues that face Americans, right? So I had a friend, Nick Rockefeller, okay, who was one of the Rockefeller family, and he, when I was running for governor in Nevada, he came to me, introduced himself to me through an attorney, and we became friends. We started talking about things, and I learned an awful lot from Mr. Rockefeller. And one of the things that we used to talk about was the ultimate plan of the banking industry, what they wanted to accomplish. And the goals of the banking industry, not just the Federal Reserve System, but the private banks in Germany and England, all over Italy, all over the world, they all work together. They're all central banks, and they're all part of the Communist Manifesto. You know, central banking is one of the major planks of the Communist Manifesto. We talk about America being a capitalistic country, but yet at the same time we have a central bank that plans everything for us, right? And the graduated income tax is another plank of the Communist Manifesto, right? So right there you have two major planks of the Communist Manifesto that have been brought in because of the Federal Reserve System, okay? So the ultimate goal that these people have in mind is the goal to create a one-world government run by the banking industry, run by the bankers, and they're doing it in sections. The European currency, the euro, and the European Constitution is one part of it. Now they're trying to do it in America with the North American Union, right? And they want to create a new currency called the Amero, right? And the whole agenda is to create a one-world government where everybody has an RFID chip implanted in them. All money is to be in those chips, right? There'll be no more cash. And this is getting me straight from Rockefeller himself. This is what they want to accomplish. And all money will be in your chips. And so instead of having cash, anytime you have money in your chip, they can take it out whatever they want to take out whenever they want to. If they say you owe us this much money in taxes, they just deduct it out of your chip digitally.
Total control.
Total control. And if you're like me or you, and you're protesting what they're doing, they can just turn off your chip. And you have nothing. You can't buy food. You can't do anything. It's total control of the people.
And that chip's connected to a database that has your purchasing records, what you do, what
everything.
you sell.
Everything is in there, you know? And so they want a one-world government controlled by them, everybody being chipped, all your money in those chips, and they control the chips, and they control people. And you become a slave. You become a serf to these people. That's their goal. That's their